Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Laura Hambley Lovett, and I'm based in Calgary, in Canada, overlooking the beautiful Rocky Mountains. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I specialize in helping people's work lives and organizations be better places to work. So I have a story. My story is when I was earlier in my career, it was about 25 years ago, and I was a newly minted consultant. I had finished my doctorate degree, and I was working in an organization as a consultant, and I was excited to prove myself. I was excited to do great work and show up as my best self until I found myself working under a toxic boss. She was known as the Ice Queen in the industry, which I later found out. She was icy cold, and she was extremely controlling and micromanagerial. I presented a session that I had worked hard on, and she happened to be on vacation. And I presented this session to a group of our clients, and I was passionate like you see me today. I was prepared. I was more junior than I am now. And of course, there were areas to improve. But when I delivered that session, there was great energy in the room. People were interested. And afterwards, the HR leaders who were in the session said, "Laura, we really appreciate this. This was really helpful." And they all filtered out of that boardroom. I was left there with this toxic ice queen, along with two other senior consultants that worked in that firm. She proceeded to tear me to shreds in front of them, saying that I sounded too much like an educator and I was, not confident enough, or I hadn't met them where they were at. All this feedback, but it was over and over and demoralizing me in front of my senior colleagues who I had gotten advice on while she was away. The problem was she was away on vacation, and controlling leaders do not like to be missing out on controlling and micromanaging the process that you're going through. So I felt completely demoralized. My confidence went down, down, down. And when I left that room, I was shaking. I went to my office, closed the door, and broke into tears. And I knew that this was a toxic situation. Luckily, I was able to get out of there 6 weeks later. I knew that my self-esteem would go downhill after working so hard on my doctorate. I was able to quit and get another job and never have to see the Ice Queen again. Fast forward, many, many years later, running my own business for almost 20 years, helping clients and organizations all over the place in North America, and noticing a trend in more and more people are suffering under toxic bosses. And I would see my clients, I would see people who were successful, educated, smart, hardworking. achievers. I would see so many women as well as men fall prey to a toxic boss, and their confidence would erode, and they would feel trapped. They would feel like they could not get out of this situation because they were financially dependent on the job. And as their confidence got eroded by a boss who was harmful, the boss would affect their well-being, their engagement, their productivity by their overt and covert behaviors. Overt behaviors are the obvious things like bullying and harassment, whereas covert behaviors are more underhanded and sneaky and manipulative. So silent, underhanded, dishonesty, manipulation. I was seeing both going on. So I decided 3 years ago I would start researching this topic. As an organizational psychologist and an adjunct professor at the University of Calgary, I have a research team, and I wanted to explore what are the behaviors and impacts of toxic leaders. And I don't even like calling them leaders. I call them bosses because they don't deserve the title of leader. A true leader brings out the best in their people, while a toxic boss degrades and depletes their energy. So I interviewed, along with my students, people in industries across North America. That was our research base. And then we went on to do surveys of people, and we found there was an incredible number of behaviors at play, and we needed a way to make that digestible and easy to understand. And that's what led me to my book. My book, I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, which I'm going to hold up for you, came out in January. I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, Practical Strategies for Navigating and Escaping a Toxic Boss. So I took all of the research and put it into a format that could help people understand what was happening to them, give them a language. And I have 8 personas of a toxic boss that describe the different behaviors of these bosses, from the dishonest manipulator to the gaslighter, to the narcissist and sociopath, to the control freak. And that was what the Ice Queen was, among other things. And I packaged these all in a way to help people understand what they're dealing with, give them a language, and then to figure out what are my options ahead of me. And through all my research and all my clients in Canada, career counseling, people we've dealt with across North America, there are 6 different options people have. And the thing is, when you're in this situation working for a toxic boss, you feel that the only way is out, the only way is to stay in, that there's no getting out. I can quit, but then am I going to get another job? The market is tough and you feel trapped. Maybe you have stock options, incentives, and you're trapped just like this bird on in the cage on the front of my book. But you're not trapped. There's 6 options in total, and quitting is only one of them. A lot of my research participants say, I wish I'd quit sooner. But there are ways to navigate internally. There are ways to get back into the driver's seat of your career. And working for a toxic boss is a form of trauma. And if you've been through it, you know what I mean. It makes you question your own abilities. It depletes you. It can cause burnout. And these are all described in the book. The anxiety, the sleep disruptions, everything that a toxic boss can cause, and then what to do about it to heal and to recover and to regain your confidence, like so many of my research participants have done and my clients have done. So that is what I'm all about. I'm about educating and shining a light about toxic leadership worldwide, how we can understand it, name it, raise awareness, and most importantly, eradicate it, because this needs to stop. It is killing people, and there's research on the link between toxic leadership and cardiovascular health, gut issues, and the list goes on. So we need to eradicate toxic leaders, and we need to help those who are suffering. And if you are suffering under a toxic boss, know there's a way out. You do not have to stay trapped in that cage. There is freedom ahead of you, and you can get that confidence back, and there is greener pastures ahead. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to discussing this with the great Gertrude and her Amazing Her Story podcast.
Oh, what an incredible story. It's interesting how our personal life experiences lead us to creating empowerment tools to help others. You had to go through this yourself for you to see it firsthand, experience it firsthand, and now this has become your life's work. So, what are the 8 personas of a toxic boss, and why is this framework so important?
Well, that is a great question. And I want to say 87% of people report having worked for a toxic boss, and almost 50% have left a job because of it. So I guarantee that either you've gone through it or someone you love has gone through it. And the thing is about the 8 personas, it gives us a language to understand and speak about. And there are the self-serving egomaniac, the unethical corrupter, the abusive a-hole, the narcissist and sociopath. I've lumped together the disordered personalities. There's the gaslighter. There's the great divider that pits teams against each other. There's the dishonest manipulator, and there's the control freak. So I've given them names, Gertrude, that would stick, that people would remember, because they deserve to be called names, because these are really toxic individuals causing great harm to people.
Yeah, and your mental health, especially in the workplace, is everything. So why do so many people stay in toxic workplaces longer than they should?
Fear of I'm not going to be able to get another job. Maybe I feel like I'm too old, like ageism in the market. I worry about that. Or I feel that I'm not confident, because what happens with a toxic boss, especially a gaslighter, is that you start to doubt your own abilities. And you think, maybe my memory's not as good. Maybe I'm not as sharp as I once was. Maybe I'm not as smart as I once was. So I'm not going to be employable. That sort of thing.
So how does a toxic boss impact somebody's mental health and identity over time?
They gradually erode your belief in yourself. So they like to find flaws. They like to find errors. They will throw you under the bus. They'll blame you for things. So they're the opposite of a great leader. And a great leader builds you up and mentors you and helps you grow. They want to see you fail, and they have the intention to cause harm. So that's the difference between a toxic boss and a difficult boss. There's a lot of difficult bosses out there as well who are not toxic. A difficult boss will be frustrating to work with, but you can actually, they have the ability to grow, to take feedback back, and they would not want to be causing harm. Whereas a toxic boss just does not have that self-insight. And they would never say, hey, Dr. Laura, do you think I'm a toxic boss? They would never ask that question. And they would not dial into my podcast or anything about it, because they don't think it applies to them. Whereas a difficult boss sometimes does. They ask me that question.
That is interesting. So what are some of the early warning signs that people often ignore?
Well, I have a whole chapter, Gertrude, on how to never report to a toxic boss again, which are, what are the red flags or warning signs that you saw when you were interviewing and being hired? And one of them, so the warning signs of a toxic boss are grandiosity. So my team's the best. This is the best place. And they're not identifying any problems. I mean, we all have challenges, right? Here's the pros, here's the cons. They're all about everything's great. This is a great culture. This is a great rah, rah, rah. And they can talk about a family. We're a family here and stuff. But no, workplace should not be a family. That's what your family's for. You can have a strong, collaborative, cohesive culture, but it should not be your family. And they also will interrupt you constantly, and they will talk. They will not listen. So in a job interview, they're doing more talking than you. That's a huge warning sign.
Wow. It's so simple, but you don't see it sometimes. Now, how can someone tell the difference between a challenging boss and a toxic one?
well, over time. So at first they can appear similar. So a toxic boss goes through a honeymoon phase where this is so common in my research is that they go through a phase where so you come and you report to me, I'm toxic. And at first I adore you. I'm just lavishing you with praise and opportunity until one day you might do something or say something that bruises my ego or challenges me, and then suddenly Gertrude is in the out group. You're no longer in my in group. And then I'll start to do these microaggressions towards you. Sometimes I'll be openly aggressive towards you, but oftentimes it's covert, it's sneaky, it's silent. So I'll talk behind your back. I'll take credit for your work. I'll throw you under the bus. I'll pit your teammates against you. I'll do all of these different things depending on what styles of toxic boss I am.
Yes, that is so fascinating. Now, can you walk us through the 3 C's? Care, curiosity, and courage.
Sure. So I like to leave people with the 3 C's in that we need to first and foremost care for ourselves and others who are suffering under a toxic boss. It is very demoralizing and damaging. So we need to care for our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health. We need to care for ourselves in our physical health. Oftentimes our sleep is disrupted, our heart rate is elevated, our blood pressure is heightened. So I always say if someone is suffering, they need to go back to basics. They need support, they need connection, community. They could benefit from a therapist, they could benefit from a good friend, they could benefit from getting outside, getting fresh air, because all of that tends to go when you're suffering under a toxic boss. And organizations need to care more for this too. That's a separate topic. The whole organizational angles. I'm going to do a book on it next, by the way. It's just. Then the second C is curiosity. So we need to get more curious as individuals about this concept of toxic bosses. We need to learn, what are the warning signs? What are the behaviors that I should look out for? And if I'm in my probation period, right, 3 months usually, sometimes 6, I'm in that probation period, I'm seeing those signs, that is the time to get out, right? To not put yourself through that. And be curious about a boss. If you're going to take on a promotion or a new job, and you need to be doing research on that boss and figure out, okay, what do they like to work for? What is their leadership style? And don't just ask them that. Ask other people who are reporting to them and have reported to them in the past. LinkedIn is our friend. You can connect with people on LinkedIn. You can see who's worked there before. If the team has had a lot of turnover in the last few years, if there's been maybe 3 people in the same role turning over like over and over, warning sign.
Yes.
And then the third, and the third is courage. It's about having the courage to get yourself out of a toxic situation, because it's much like an abusive relationship is. You end up feeling trapped, and it's usually financial. But let me assure you that it's better to be out of that cage, and there's always opportunities out there. There's always healthier settings out there to get yourself into. I've seen it time and time again, the freedom at the other side of this.
So what are some practical steps that someone can take if they feel trapped in a toxic work environment?
Well, you should be listening or reading. I wish I'd quit sooner. Sorry. My book for sure. But what you should be doing is starting to document. Okay. So I want you to have a spreadsheet or a document that's not on your work computer. I want it to be on your personal device, where you start to document an incident. So when did the incident happen? What did the toxic boss do or say to you? And what were the impacts on you? And what platform was it on? And were there any witnesses? Okay. So the issue is that my boss was verbally aggressive and insulted me on a Teams meeting. It was on
Yeah.
Teams. There were these two other colleagues that were there. It was on this date, and it made me feel anxious.
Mm.
I had stomach cramps, whatever it was. What were the impacts on you physically, mentally, and emotionally? And I want you to document that, because the more of those incidents that you have, the more you realize a pattern, and the
Yes.
more it's cathartic to let it out and to journal it or note it. And if you decide to file a claim with HR or a legal case, you have all of those incidents at your
Yeah.
disposal.
Yeah, because sometimes as well, when these things happen and you don't make a note of them, you think, oh, did I really see that? Am I overreacting? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. You start second doubting yourself. But if you've documented it, you can see the trend. I love that.
Exactly. And you may never go the formal complaint or the legal route. It's not for everyone. I write about it in the book. I write about the pros and cons, and I have real stories of survivors who have filed legal complaints, who have had whole lawsuits. I've had ones that have walked away, chosen to walk away, and there's pros and cons. It depends on you and your unique situation and life.
Yeah, that's so true. So, what role does organizational culture play in allowing toxic leaders to thrive?
A massive one. um, and I'm keynoting the HR conference in my province. So there'll be 500 HR professionals and leaders, and I'll be
Right.
keynoting on HR's playbook for navigating toxic leadership, because often HR's caught in the middle of this
Right.
situation. So
Yeah.
HR definitely has a role in helping to, first of all, identify it, and then once you identify it, you need to figure out how to address it swiftly. And there's
Yes.
warning signs, there's ways to collect data, etc. But the problem is, if they're friends with the senior leaders or they're part of the club,
Mm,
and then it's really hard to get rid of them. It's harder. And if they're bringing in money, projects, or clients. So I always say, well, it depends, right? So if you want to have a difficult, toxic culture that is eroding your people, yet you're making money, it's the how it's being done. And ultimately, it's the values that you stand behind as a culture. And you can
yes.
decide, but you shouldn't be putting values like well-being and work-life balance and all these things if you're letting toxic leadership root itself into your culture.
Organizational culture.
Mhm.
So, how can companies be held accountable for toxic leadership?
Companies be held accountable.
Mm,
Well, I mean, the board of directors needs to be asking the question about, I want to have results on your levels of turnover and your engagement scores and what's your climate and your culture like. And the board needs to be really aware of the leadership in place and how that is impacting the people. And if you have great leadership in place, performance will eventually soar. Like, performance and culture go hand in hand, but it's
yeah.
not always direct and in short term. It's not in one quarter it's all solved. It's a longer term investment and a longer
Yes.
term play, and it needs to be from the CEO, the board chair, everybody down. But I've seen time and time again, when the CEO is toxic, then it trickles down.
Yeah. And that's a real pity when that happens.
Yeah, it's really sad
Um,
because, yeah, so many impacts.
so, what does healing look like after leaving a toxic workplace?
It depends on how it has impacted you. And I'm thinking of my clients. I'm thinking of all the
Mm,
women, all the women, but also men, because a woman is just as likely to be a toxic boss as a man. However,
yes.
there are
So,
fewer women in leadership roles, which is an issue unto itself, a parity issue, right? That
yes.
we want to tackle. I'm sure you're tackling that, Gertrude. You're amazing. But I
Mm,
think that we need to understand that it's not a gender specific issue, but women are more at risk of it than men. Women seem to suffer under a toxic boss more than men.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. I actually wrote an article on it for International Women's Day because there is data around that. There's a pattern around that. So more of my clients are women than men, but it's about helping them gain the confidence. Confidence is the number one thing in navigating this. And healing will be, some of them get therapy, some of them really double down on having a recuperation period of time to rebuild their mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. They might it's about a routine. It's getting back into a routine that builds your energy reserves and gives you a sense of purpose again.
Yeah, that building up of those energy reserves is crucial.
Yes.
Wow.
And maybe it's volunteering. So I've had some clients where they're not quite ready to get back into the workplace because their self-esteem has been damaged, their confidence. And I get them to at least get into volunteer roles and to get themselves out there so they can start to realize, hey, it's not me, right? I'm still a valued contributor to society and I have skills.
I think that's really important. Now, my last two questions for you are a bit of a thought experiment. In the first one, I'm going to teleport you back. And we are going to go and meet that younger woman who was in this toxic environment. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
Hello?
I'm going to let you answer the question on your own. So I've just disappeared for a minute.
Okay. The 3 nuggets of wisdom that I would tell my younger self when she was suffering under a toxic boss earlier in my career, I would say everything is going to be okay. You are skilled, you are talented, and you will land somewhere else. And don't take it personally. And I think we all take things personally earlier in our lives. And as we get older, we realize it's not about me, it's about them. And they have their own wounds and scars. So don't take it so personally, Laura. And my third thing is everything happens for a reason to help us grow. The most difficult times in our lives, the most difficult jobs, the hairiest, horrible bosses, the brutal divorce, whatever it is that you have endured, it helps you grow. Inevitably, it helps you grow and become stronger, more empathetic, and more wise. It's wisdom. In the wrinkles that we get, it's all wisdom and learning and growth as the souls we are. So I would say that to my younger self.
That's absolutely beautiful. Last question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future this time. And we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. And she's sitting in her rocking chair. By then, she's probably written 100 books on this subject at the rate you're going. But if we could teleport into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I would say that I admire her wisdom. And wisdom is something that takes time, it takes years, it takes life experiences. You can't have wisdom at a young age. I mean, some people go through a lot at a young age and they develop wisdom earlier on in their lives. But I would say to the older me, I would hope to be a source of wisdom, and I would admire the challenges and the opportunities I've been through. But most importantly, I would admire the number of human lives I've touched and helped through my mission to help people thrive in their work and lives. And that's my Dr. Laura platform and my Where Work Meets Life podcast and my book, Shining a Light on Toxic Leaders. That's not easy. And I would look at that 90-year-old woman and say, okay, those 5 wrinkles or 10 are from that journey because I've put myself out there so much on the news, on the radio, on whatever, talking about this issue. And the world is tricky and unstable and uncertain, and there's toxic leadership behaviors in our faces, in the media, and it is a timely and thorny topic.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, Dr. Laura, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom with our community. Is there anything else I should have asked you and I didn't?
What I would be drinking and eating when I'm 90.
What would that be?
I'm about health, but I'm also about moments, and I just would have a glass of wine with a good friend, and I would hope that I would enjoy life and chocolate and delicious food, and just savor the moments of nature and the great world that we live in that has so much beauty.
Yeah, that is so, so true. Well, it's been an absolute honor sharing you with our community today. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I've got your website at the bottom of the screen in case anybody wants to reach out and get your support and help. And where can people buy your book?
Yeah, the book I Wish I'd Quit Sooner. You see it on the website. There's a tab called New Book on top of the website, but you'll also find the book on all the booksellers and Amazon, Audible, all of those local booksellers. It's being translated right now into Italian and Russian, and these different markets are picking it up. I know they need it too. But I'm hoping it gets, more traction because it's very practical and it's helping people. I know it is because the reviews have been, wow, this was a game changer for me. And my clients are finding it so helpful too.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Laura, and thank you to everybody who tuned in. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to empower you, to inspire you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are somebody who's feeling stuck, is going through an experience with a toxic boss, you don't have to do it alone. Find the experts that can help you through that journey. Or if you know somebody who is in this situation, please tag them on this video. Share this video on your social media so we can reach more people as well. I'll be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Dr. Laura, thank you again for the interview.
My pleasure. Stay well.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story. Thank you so much. That